My guest today is Charles Egan, the Chief Technology Officer at BlackBerry. Charles, welcome to the discussion.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, Jason.
Let me set some context for our conversation today. In January, Federal News Network asked federal employees, how big of an impact did the BlackBerry handheld device have on your agency? And 73% answered it was very impactful. So when the BlackBerry decided to stop supporting this much beloved device, it marked an end of an era in the federal government. But what it didn't do is mark the end of what made BlackBerry so popular. I know, Charles, I'm not talking here about the end of the keyboard that everybody loves. The majority of the people I talked to for the story said, I love the keyboard. Rather, what we're talking about is what made BlackBerry popular is the security. Several respondents to the survey mentioned how they trusted the BlackBerry device and the company, of course. And they may also say that they told stories about how BlackBerry was one of the few devices, if not the only device, that really actually worked during the September 11th attacks. It was that security, that trust that helped establish the device and the company in the federal sector. And now BlackBerry, as Charles will tell us, is much better known as a security company. So as agencies move toward the zero trust architecture, continue to expand their networks to support remote workers and the hybrid workforce, and address the challenges of connected devices, the ever-growing cybersecurity challenges becomes even more complex. So how can agencies navigate the current cyber environment to find the right balance of security and accessibility? Well, that's where my guest comes in. Once again, I'm joined by Charles Egan, the Chief Technology Officer at BlackBerry. Well, let's start kind of back a little bit. The handheld device, as you know, as I mentioned, it was very popular. People loved it, but it's actually was the precursor to where you are at today and the focus on security. Walk me through that transformation, if you will, and how did a simple handheld device take you to security?
Yeah, well, listen, I think there's long and short versions of that story, but I'll stick to the short version for the key points. Certainly, creating the mobile workforce and with security was a big part of BlackBerry's heritage. And we did more than our 10,000 hours. It's probably our 10 million hours of the intricacies of how you build and deploy millions of devices globally in a secure way. And there's lots of muscle memory in that activity that is still relevant today. The cyber challenges have not diminished, and the connected devices have not diminished. So along the journey, somewhere around 2013, John Chen joined our company as a new CEO, and that's where we started our transition to software. Our focus has really been, how do we create security and privacy for connected devices? And our pivot to software started as early as 2013, and much more formally around 2016, we announced that we were moving to security software. So, it was sort of a natural pivot to continue to do the things that we were good at, which was security in markets, both cybersecurity and IoT, that are in, let's say, lots of need of this kind of security.
The pivot came at a time, and I think that's where I want to take the conversation, is the security challenges are increasing, the number of connected devices are increasing. What is it about connected devices that makes them so difficult? We know, okay, I'm connected to your network, you're connected to a network, we're potentially on the same network, but maybe break it down to the next level.
Yeah, so with the advent of connected devices, there's a lot more personal information and financial information and business information that's flowing. There's not a lot of standards either for the connecting of devices. So, people are putting rogue devices in their enterprises and in their homes, and we're making it easier for the cyber threat actors to it only takes one attack point to be able to get in. So, the behavior of business is in personal and entertainment. To say it's an explosion of connectivity is an understatement, and we kind of all know that. I know in your original focus on BlackBerry, the concept of someone answering a phone caused a dramatic reaction to people, and that's pretty much if it's inverted, it's inverted times 10,000, right?
That was one of my favorite stories from former OMB Robert Shea, that a la Maxwell Smart, and yes. Back then it was just weird, right? Now today it's more normal than anything else. The connected devices piece, and a lot of people think of connected devices and we think of IoT, right? Internet of Things. And But you're not just talking about that piece, because that gets, the IT versus the OT, or the integration of the two. You're really talking about right now I'm connected to my Wi-Fi network with my computer. I have a phone. I have my desktop computer. I have my PlayStation, my TV. That's what you mean by connected devices at the same time.
Yeah. So there's the most innocent connected device I heard was a clothespin that detected the rain and let people know. But yes, there's so much connectivity going on. Smart homes, smart cities, connected automobiles, connected computers, desktops, laptops. We're surrounded by them. We have more IP addresses per person going up. And like, if you look at a home network, there's hundreds of connected devices, and people are, sometimes lose track of how much connectivity is actually going on. There's, connected fish tanks and connected, so certainly the smartphone, but tablet, computer, servers, cars, the smart city is really a focus point for lots of this connectivity.
And then when you go the other side of it is the operational technology, and for agencies and private businesses and other organizations, you're talking about HVAC, you're talking about the technology that lets you walk in and validates and verifies that you are Charles Egan and you are allowed to come in through the gates.
Yes.
That's a whole different set of connected devices as well.
Yeah, certainly the badge access, the real-time camera scanning, detection, face detect, HVAC, certainly the wide spectrum of smart buildings as well.
So when we talk about these connected devices, what is difficult, or why is it difficult to secure them? I know from listening and reading the zero trust strategy that's all the rage across the federal government today, they're talking about know what your endpoint devices are. That's really the key. What are your endpoint devices? And that really comes back to something that BlackBerry did with phones. You knew what your phones were.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting. Something you rarely heard was a BlackBerry device has been cloned or rooted. And that was, that's quite an achievement, because most other devices, that's not such a rare occurrence, let's say. But yeah, the importance of getting sort of a holistic security framework that includes, user authentication, device authentication, network authentication, and making sure, things as simple as passwords are actually a security liability, because it's static, it's fixed, and once known, you have access to someone's password protected information. So this is why the move to zero trust, where trust is something that's transactional and it's earned and then it's taken away, is really important. That's why Biden's executive order looking at the software bill of materials is really important, and trying to understand with the going slightly off track here, but the amount of open source software being used in devices, it's the attack surface is really quite broad. So you can attack the network, you can attack the open source, you can attack the user identity. There's all kinds of increased cyber threats, hackers for hire going on.
And that just obviously makes it more scary and more important that, again, you establish trust, you earn the trust, then it's transactional. You trust today, but you trust in an hour and 10 minutes from now, however
Right.
long it is. And I think that's part of it. And I want to go back to something you said, the authentication piece, network, device. There's a lot going on that you have to authenticate to establish that bond, that earned trust. How are agencies doing today? Are they getting through that? Or are they at the beginning stages? What are you seeing?
Well, I know the executive order pushes the move to zero trust, and I think there is an evolution going on as people start to look at their current infrastructure and figure out how vulnerable they really are. Certainly, part of our BlackBerry portfolio is the reliance on artificial intelligence to do this dynamic security modeling to detect the mobile devices, the computers, the network that could be compromised. So, certainly artificial intelligence is an important part of building the solutions to, detect when these have been compromised. But I think you first need to understand what you have in your network, and then you need to understand what are the threats and how you're preventing against them, because hope is not a good plan for your cyber strategy.
A common refrain I've heard many times: hope is not a plan. I think that's interesting. You went back to reliance on AI because there's so many devices, and the devices change and the threats change. There's no way you or I, the human in the loop, right? We need to be in the loop, but we can't make that first, there's a problem alert. Is that why agencies are starting to look at AI as that initial, okay, that's going to alert us what's going on, and then we can decide where to go next?
Yeah, like it's been several years now. We acquired Cylance, and they had an AI model that was gave us a leg up in terms of detecting malware, for example. And the thing was, it didn't key off a signature; it keyed off behavioral patterns that looked malicious. So it could be something like, oh, there's a lot of files being read from the internet or being sent to the internet, or there's a directory that's being operated on. We didn't know specifically what the malware was, but we knew that it kind of smelled bad. And this was something that we could give a probabilistic determination that before you execute this file, you should know that it's 70% chance that it's malicious. So this is why we think a solid cybersecurity strategy needs to do prevention. So it's much harder to contain a cyber threat once it's been let into the network and exposed. So we use AI, for example, to detect something before it's ever opened, so it doesn't create any of the cleanup challenges that would otherwise be needed. So in security, you've probably heard the term defense, or breadth and depth, and you need to cover all the walls of the safe, so to speak. So but yeah, that's AI. There's so much data moving, it's hard for human time to detect and prevent damage, and there's so many potential attack vectors. You really need automated detection and response, because once something is has infiltrated, isolating it becomes much more challenging in general.
Right. I think that's also part of why the zero trust piece is so important, because if you're trusting each transaction, hey, this application, this network, this piece of data, that trust factors, the handshake happens each time. So hopefully you can stop that lateral movement, because as we've seen time and again, once the attackers get in, they move laterally very quickly, and it's hard to find them. I think that's the key. I want to go back to one thing you said before we got into the AI conversation, which is first you need to understand what's on your network. And I think agencies have been going down that path for quite a while with the continuous diagnostics and mitigation program and other things we've seen in the executive order endpoint detection and response. Is that what you're seeing agencies are doing today, or that's really the focus initially?
Yeah. So I think the initial focus of trying to find out truly what's on the network is important, and there is there's attempts via policy to remove, to slow down rogue connected devices, but there's also more systematic ways, such as network monitoring and so sort of looking at what's going on in your network and what kind of behaviors you're seeing. But yes, trying to understand what is connected, and trying to architect things. I'm seeing this where people are trying to isolate critical systems so that access to one part of the network doesn't necessarily give access to more critical parts of the network. So security is something that's kind of hard to retrofit. So if you design things to be partitioned with the least amount of people that need to see it, seeing it, with privileges being assigned and then removed, so that it's not a long-term access that could be infiltrated later on by some malicious actor, it's all part of that holistic best practices.
All right, Charles, we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll get into some of those best practices. You're listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carahsoft on Federal News Network.